It's always exciting when former Gamecocks in any sport go to the pro level. I always tell everyone there's a big difference between college and pro. You know, a lot of people say like, oh, like, are they going to do this? You think this player's going to go there? And I'm like, it just depends. Because sometimes really great college players don't make it in the pros. Sometimes they don't get really great opportunities. You know, it just depends. So it's always exciting when you are watching a draft in any sport and you hear the Gamecocks come off the board, because it's like, that is a dream realized. That is the next level. Becoming a pro athlete is so cool. And for 3 Gamecocks, that was the case last week at the MLB Draft, because 3 former Gamecock baseball players are headed to Major League Baseball, Claire, and this is nothing new for the Gamecock program. You know, they have a lot of current pros and former pros throughout their history, and 3 guys are joining the ranks. Ethan Petry, Nathan Hall, and Matthew Becker all going off the board last week. Really, really fun and deserved. And I know Claire's our resident like baseball expert. That is her sport. That is the one that you love so deeply.
Yes.
So let's just kind of, before we get into it, Ethan Petry taken in the 2nd round, 49th overall to the Washington Nationals. Nathan Hall was in the 5th round to the Arizona Diamondbacks. And then Matthew Becker was in the 19th round to the Minnesota Twins. And of course, Nathan Hall is a Lexington kid and Matthew Becker is a Chapin kid. So those are 2 Columbia natives who are heading to the major leagues. And I don't care what round you go in, I always say you got to celebrate because you're a pro, and that is cool. Anyway, Claire, what's your reaction to all this?
Well, Ethan Petry was no surprise whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, he finished his junior year and was saying his goodbye, like, okay, here I go, guys, because everyone's like, yeah, he's going to get drafted 2nd round. Not surprised at all. Didn't think he was quite a 1st-round pick, so early in the 2nd round made sense for him. Leaves the Gamecocks 2nd all-time in career home runs with 54. He was just shy of that this year. I believe he was 8 home runs away from tying Justin Smoke for the record, but he got injured. But hey, 2nd place, not too shabby.
Not bad.
And for a guy who means so much, like he truly loved being a Gamecock and wore that uniform with such pride. So I think he's probably okay with being number 2 on that list.
I was going to say, too, I was going to ask you what you think Ethan Petry's legacy is here, because he was kind of part of a strange era of Gamecock baseball. A lot of change, you know, part of the Kingston era that turned into the Maneri era, but wasn't part of the Maneri era for very long, but someone who was the face of the team and really was a superstar that could have gone anywhere. You know, he easily could have transferred and gone somewhere else.
Right.
He said, no, I love South Carolina. I'm going to stay here. The numbers he put up is unbelievable. I think he's a Gamecock legend.
Yeah.
I do. I think he deserves to be in that realm. But and I know it's kind of hard because their standard is so high with all the national championships and all of the great players. But I do think Ethan Petry should be, you know, in that stratosphere, which I think it's a big club, like the elite Gamecock baseball club. I think there are so many that they have, and I do think Ethan Petry should be in that conversation.
Absolutely. I think he's one of those, like, because he's not a showy kind of guy.
Yeah.
Like, he is a quiet leader and a quiet star, I feel like. So I think the people who know this team and know it well know how awesome he is, but he's not necessarily one of those that it's like, going back to talking about football before, he's not a like, oh, the quarterback of South Carolina football is Lenore Sellers. Like, and anybody could say that. Not everybody, just because of the sport that baseball is, it's not like that. But from what I've heard from the people in and around that team, they have just said from the beginning, like even when he came on his visits before being recruited to South Carolina, he just carries himself in a different way. And that's something that baseball people use as like a measuring stick often is, do they carry themselves like a major leaguer? Do they go about their business like that? And that's something that everyone has always said about Ethan Petry. Like, he took his job, really, and that's what it is in college athletics these days. He took his job as a part of this team very seriously, and it showed because of the results on the field.
I think the only shame is that we didn't really get to see Ethan Petry like really put on a great performance in the postseason, just because like the postseason opportunities weren't there. And I think that was the only thing that, like, man, he deserved to have like a big moment, you know, in the College World Series or whatever it, you know, a super regional or whatever it is. I think that's the only thing that's like, man, he's such a great player and he didn't really get that chance.
Right. And
throughout his career.
Hopefully he's able to have them at the next level and you can look back and say, oh my gosh, World Series MVP Ethan Petrie.
Yeah.
He went to South Carolina.
Yeah.
Speak it into existence.
Well, Nathan Hall and Matthew Becker, of course, going as well. Any thoughts on those two draft picks?
Nathan Hall, something we're going to let you hear from head coach Paul Mainieri here in just a minute. And one thing he has said about him since the beginning of last season, really, before we even saw Nathan Hall in a Gamecock uniform out on the field, because of course he transferred to South Carolina from Clemson, is how much he as a player meant to Mainieri. Because, and something he'll talk about is he didn't get that much opportunity when he was at Clemson, whether it just he wasn't playing well there, or wasn't the right fit, the right environment, that kind of thing. And he really was able to play freely and thrive here at South Carolina, despite the overall result of this season last year. And some of the numbers from him last year: 322 batting average, reached base in 20 straight games, and had 19 multi-hit games. Like, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
He was one of those, when you were at the game and he was up at bat, you're like, oh, he's gonna get on base. You just knew it.
Which is crazy to say.
And he wasn't necessarily like a power hitter. I think he had 7 home runs on the season last year, but he was just an on-pace guy. And as your leadoff hitter, that's so important.
Yeah.
So he meant a lot to Mainieri. And I remember this at the very beginning of this season. He had said, this kid is going to get drafted. He's going to be a major league ball player one day. And I mean, somebody with 40 years of coaching experience, I trust what that guy says. So,
Yeah.
And look where we are. So
Yeah.
really happy for him. Like you said, Lexington native. And it's interesting to see that in a sport like baseball that you can play till you're late 30s, 40s even, that sometimes it's the end of your college career when you're able to like really have success and that be the start of your career.
Yeah. Just really cool stuff for Nathan Hall. Again, a Lexington high school kid, went to Clemson, which it's funny how things change because, like, you kind of forget that now. You know that now he's just a Gamecock in your mind. It does with any transfer, who goes anywhere else. It's like where they end their careers, kind of just where you think of them being forever. So really cool for Nathan Hall. But let's hear from Paul Mainieri, because he did speak to the media last week after the MLB draft. And here's what he had to say about his 3 guys who were taken off the board.
We lost 2 to the pro draft, and Nathan Hall and Ethan Petrie. And by the way, just so proud of those 2 guys, happy for them. Ethan was the 2nd pick of the 2nd round, so he should get himself a nice payday and off to a great pro career. And then Nathan Hall, of course, will always be very special to me because he was a kid that didn't play hardly at all his first 2 years at Clemson, came in here and had a terrific year for us, and he went in the 5th round. So real happy for those guys.
So a big week for Ethan Petrie, Nathan Hall, and Matthew Becker, who are now pros, and we'll be following them in their pro career, just like every Gamecock in the pros.